Hey guys, what's going on? It's 41 here, and we're going to be doing some LCS Summer Split in review. Now, this prediction season didn't go too well for me, though I definitely did hit on some things there were definitely some things I was right about at the end. So we just start at the top. 100 Thieves I predicted would be first. They were very close. I said 100 Thieves would be really good this split, and they were. They performed quite well, going 18-9. There was definitely a fall off at the end of the split. Specifically, the last 3 weeks were pretty disappointing for 100 Thieves, losing to teams like Dignitas, Cloud9, Immortals, losing to TSM, and Evil Geniuses in the last week. All very disappointing results that I think in the first 6 weeks of the split, people would not have expected. They were incredibly good in those first 6 weeks. But honestly, it comes down to head coach. I think Reaper has always been known to be a double edged sword. You get great drafting at the beginning, meta defining picks sometimes, and really just an innovative way of looking at the game. But on the other end, you get him being wrong too, and it happens. And when he's wrong, he is wrong. And because of it, they ended up losing a lot of those games. Hopefully, they'll regain their form for playoffs, but we'll see. So I had 100 Thieves first, they finished second. Then I had TL second. Now, of course, no one knew before the season just how bad it was over at Team Liquid, and they started off the season horribly with the benching of Alfari and then the firing of Jat or the stepping down, whatever. He was fired. Let's be honest, he was fired. Um, and then Santorin's health problems getting worse. Like all of these things kind of accumulated, and really they just fell off a cliff. They've regained their form in recent weeks, and they're looking better with Santorin and Alfari, the whole squad, back to the original state it was supposed to be in. This team could make a decent run during the playoffs, I anticipate, but they definitely fell short of the second place I had them going to, and I think most people thought they would be there as well or close to it. So fifth, not great for Team Liquid. Definitely a disappointing split. I had Cloud9 third. I predicted a fall off for Cloud9. And I think a lot of people would have called me crazy, an idiot, like what the hell are you talking about? Like Cloud9 just went to MSI, they beat Damwon and they beat RNG and they did all this stuff. Like, how can you say that Cloud9 is going to fall off? Well, the thing is, I just don't have a lot of faith in this roster. I'm going to be honest. Here's the thing, right? Like, I will admit I was very wrong about Fudge. I was incredibly wrong about Fudge. Like, Fudge is a talent, and I really didn't give him a lot of credit, and he definitely deserved more. But to me, there's too many egos on this team overall. I think they're all players that want to play individually and don't want to play for the team. If I had to pick players that would play for the team, I think Vulcan and Blabber are more than willing to play for the team's ends. But I think Fudge, Perks, and Sven are very individual players. They like to spotlight. They like to be funneled things. And especially like when you have a person like Perks who's come over from Europe, probably has a superiority complex because NA's trash and all that, and he probably just thinks he's better than his teammates, and because of that, they've really suffered in the second half of the year, only going 15-12. A lot of these wins coming recently in the last 2-3 weeks. They've definitely rebounded. But the first 6 weeks, they were really bad. They were one game away from a losing record, something like that. They really struggled. And though they kind of pulled it back later on, they finished below where I put them. I put them third. I thought they probably won't fall further than that, but oh my god, did they fall. Like, they were really bad this split. I don't anticipate this team going to Worlds, and I'll talk about that in my playoff video later. But right now, like, they're still just such a big disappointment this split, I think. All right, next up, I put Dignitas fourth. Again, another team that kind of just fell into turmoil with the benching of Saligo in favor of Yusui, and then after that, Dardoch leaving his, eighth team or something like that, to join Immortals as a assistant coach, and them having to put in Acadian. This team has been through quite a bit, and I don't really know what to think about them. I think the team has a lot of promise, and I think the players on it are talented, and they've definitely picked it up in recent weeks and have looked a lot better than they were looking. But I think at the end of the day, they're just not there. I expected another leap from this team and maybe a bit more consistency in the summer split from spring, and they kind of just let me down. So I really don't anticipate anything out of this team. Again, I'll talk about that more in the playoff video, but yeah, dropping 2 spots from where I expected them, not great. All right, TSM, a team I was very wrong about, I will definitely admit. The biggest problem that TSM had in spring split, in my opinion, was consistency. There were games where they looked great and they were like on top of the world, probably the best team in the league. And then there were games where they looked like shit. Like, bro, this is a team that lost 4 games to FlyQuest this year. It's not a surprise, right, that I look at them and go, well, as teams get more consistent throughout summer split, and as some teams have better players, they're probably going to get worse, right, because they're not consistent. And I didn't anticipate this team becoming consistent, and they did. And it really is off the back of Spica, who I thought had a really up and down spring split, has really come back into form in summer, and he has looked really good. I think PoE, with the meta moving more towards mages again, is definitely going to have a resurgence in the playoffs, and there's definitely a chance that TSM win the whole thing because of that. If they can draft around PoE, they can win, right? I think Huni has looked decent as well. I think Lost and Sword Art have definitely found a synergy that wasn't there before. So TSM is definitely a team that I was very wrong about, and I definitely look forward to watching in the playoffs. Number 6, I had IMT there. IMT finished 7th. They actually looked very good at the beginning of the split, and there were a lot of moments throughout summer where they looked like they could be the best team in the league. Like, their macro was perfect, their laning phase was great, and they have some really mechanically talented players. It just seems that for every 3-0 week, they had an 0-3 week at some point, right? And we can actually go down and look at it, but like, it's like, look at this: 3-0, 0-3, 0-3, 3-0, 0-3. Like, it's just it's so strange to me. Like, this team has so much promise, right? And they've shown it. Like, they've beaten some good teams in summer, but there are just some weeks where they just don't look on it. They do not look good. So I was pretty close though with this one. They got 6th. They actually ended up in 7th. So not too bad. Their bot lane, I said, was the problem heading into summer split, and that continued. When this team is winning, it's because their bot lane is playing well. When this team is losing, it's because their bot lane is just inting the game, right? If this team wants to go to Worlds, if this team wants to win any games in playoffs, The bot lane has to be consistent. We need to see more from Raze and Destiny, which is a possibility because we've seen it in these games. Like, they have played well. They have had good weeks. And, you look at player of the week, right? When they've had these 3-0 weeks, it's been like their bot lane. Xerxes had that Rumble week 1. But when this team is winning, it's because of their bot lane, right? Look, Destiny has 4 player of the games. Why does... Oh, that's the... Raze has 2 player of the games. Like, realistically, this team's chances will come down to their bot lane at the end of the day. Next, FlyQuest. This is a bittersweet one to look at. On one hand, I'm really annoyed that they didn't make playoffs as a fan, and I just feel like this team had so much talent and kind of just threw it away. But on the other hand, it's definitely a wake-up call to the organization. Like, they need to fire this coaching staff, and a rebuild is more likely than not going to happen. A lot of talent on this team, though, and I don't anticipate, like, Jose Dioto going anywhere or anything like that. So we'll see what happens with FlyQuest, but all in all, pretty disappointing year. I thought they'd end up in 7th. I thought we were going to see improvement, but they just looked worse and worse past week 1. They had a decent first week, and then it all just went downhill. They ended up trading Licorice away, or transferring him away at the end of week 5, right before week 6. And, we subbed in the academy team, and there was some promise there, and then it just kind of fell apart from there. So, don't really know what to think about this team. Overall disappointed. So they finished 9th. I predicted them to finish 7th at least, and they just didn't live up to expectations. Here's one I was really wrong about. I had very high expectations for CLG. End of spring split, they looked good. Like, they had developed, they were getting better, and then we come into summer split, and it's just a disaster. A complete disaster. Except for the 1 week where they had the Galio Vi comp that they developed and were winning with, this team was absolute garbage and just could not do anything. Bringing in DeMonte at the end wasn't enough to push them in the playoffs. This is the team that I had as a dark horse for going to Worlds at the end of the year as that play-in spot. Like, I really thought, like, this team with the veteran presence and the talent on it could make a run. Like, realistically, they could, and they really just let me down throughout the split. So nothing more to say other than, like, this team is a dumpster fire, and they finished last place. So next up, EG. This one is my biggest blunder, I'd have to say, of all my predictions. I thought EG would be awful. I thought them not replacing Jisuke was a huge mistake. It made no sense. I thought them bringing up Danny was just, like, weird. It was just a weird decision. Like, I didn't think Deathly was that bad during the split that they needed to bring up some kid from fucking, like, amateurs. Like low-level amateurs. But they did. And in the first week, I saw terrible play. They were 0-3. They were a terrible team. They looked horrible. And then they just started winning. And it was really weird, but I mean, at the end of it all, like, EG is probably the best team in North America right now. I had them 9th, and they finished 3rd. Like, beyond impressed with EG. I think they've played incredibly well, and I was very wrong. This is a team that really is anchored down by impact. Jizuke and Danny have proven to be, like, really aggressive players, but they get the job done, and they're really good at what they do. Ignar has been a great support for this team as well. His roaming is fucking perfection. Just overall, probably top top 3 support in the league at this point. Like, Ignaris look great. They keep rotating Svenskeren and contracts in and out, which kind of reminds me of Cloud9 back in, I want to say it was 2018, when they were constantly rotating Blabber and Svenskeren, which really wasn't like in Cloud9 wasn't expected to do anything that playoffs either, and they ended up going all the way to the final. They didn't do too well at Worlds, if I remember correctly, though. So that's kind of what it reminds me of. Except they have a lot of stability in the mid lane. I'd say, or a lot more stability than that Cloud9 team had. That's for sure. But definitely an interesting team to watch heading into playoffs. And honestly, I think they could probably win the whole thing. Very wrong about Evil Geniuses. Golden Guardians. Okay, I was completely right about this team until they traded for Licorice, right? When they traded for Licorice, this team just got 10 times better. You know, having the playmaking and topside. Like, Solo's a great player, and it still kind of confuses me why Golden Guardians would take that transfer. It really doesn't make any sense in the grand scheme of things. Just because, like, you're paying money for a player that realistically you don't need, right? Like, your season's over. You're not going to do anything in playoffs. There's no point in transferring, spending money on him now. Like, you don't know what this guy's gonna be. Like for all you know, he's terrible right now. You have Solo, you have veteran leadership. Like, why are you getting Licorice? And according to Nick Fan, who's the general manager for FlyQuest, like, they paid a hefty amount for him. Like, originally the GM for Golden Guardians called and was like, well, we want Licorice. Like, what would you be willing to give him up for? And Nick Fan was like, oh, I don't really want to give him up, so I'll just throw out, like, an absurd amount, right? And they'll probably back off and be like, oh, okay, I'm not willing to pay that. So he throws out the absurd amount, and they come back and they're like, yeah, we'll pay that. And it's like, are you kidding? Like, why? There's no point in doing that. I think as a move, as a GM, I think it's just poor. It's just a poor move. Like, why would you do that? Even if Licorice, pans out. Let's even say that they make Worlds. It's still just, it isn't a smart thing to do. It doesn't make any sense at all. And that's why, to me, like, I don't really get it. But I'm rooting for Golden Guardians, because Licorice is on the team, and I'd love to see them make Worlds, but that move will remain questionable to me for the rest of the year, and honestly, for years to come, I'd say. Well, that is LCS Summer Split in review completed. I will be putting out detailed evaluations of each team later on, as well as doing a playoff video. So catch you guys later. Like, comment, and subscribe.